There's a verse that says, perfect love casts out all fear. Now that's a nice sentiment and all, like, oh yeah, it's like a Hallmark thing. It sounds like at first, oh, like, if you do the right thing, good things happen. Like, it should be obvious. But I found this to be one of the deepest, most powerful things that could ever help people. One of the biggest things, one of the biggest problems, or another way to say it is, the majority of what people are struggling with often can be completely reduced to a root cause of fear. Fear. Deep down inside, you're afraid of something, and that is causing the majority of your suffering. It stops you from doing the things you want to do. It paralyzes you. It keeps you from saying the things you want to say or reaching out and meeting the people you want to meet, and a million other things you can think of in your own life that fear is stopping you from. These plants are totally distracting me. I'm going to go to another room. Hold on. So, most people think the opposite of fear is bravery. You know, the opposite of fear is a lack of fear. But how do you just be brave? You just muscle up the will and say, I'm going to face it. I'm going to face my fears. I'm going to be brave. That's actually not the worst strategy. That can help a lot when you decide to face your fears and you white knuckle it and you push yourself through. A lot of times you come out on the other end and say, oh, that wasn't so scary. That didn't hurt so much. And you develop more confidence and you become more brave and your fear goes down. So there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a much, much better way to conquer your fears. And that's with love. Now, again, this sounds all sentimental, like Hallmarky. Like, what does that actually mean? And not just love, but perfect love. Now, that sounds even weirder and more hippy-dippy. But it's really, really solid, mathematically sound. And I'll explain it. It'll click in your mind once you see it for what it is. So what I want you to do is stop and think about who you love the most in your life. Probably a family member, a mother, a father, a child, maybe even a niece or nephew, a spouse. But who do you love so much that if a threat came down and you had to literally give up your own life so that they could be saved, that you would do it? You wouldn't want to give up your life, but your commitment is so strong that in that moment it would be worth it to you. Think about that person. And for some people, it doesn't have to be that extreme. It could even be, what is someone or something that you would put yourself into danger for? So maybe you wouldn't give up your entire life, but you would put yourself into quite a bit of danger for. So in that case, it could be a dog or a cat, someone you really, really love to the point that you would jump in front of danger to protect this particular being. And it doesn't have to even be a person. It could be a passion. What is something that you just love so much that when you get the opportunity to do it, you block out everything else in your life and you're just so filled with joy and you just want to throw yourself into it 100%. I'm describing all different kinds of objects of your love. And it has to be that deep to the point where you block out everything else. Now that you have this person in mind, hold that person in mind, whether it's a mother, father, dog, cat, whatever, some being that you would absolutely throw yourself into danger for, or even a passion, like a hobby that you love so much that you would risk everything else if you could do it more. Hold that in your mind, put it to the side. Now think about some of your biggest fears. Are they fears of being attacked by somebody? Fears of home intruders, fears of losing your job, fears of a disease stopping you, pain, medical something. Pick 1, 2, or 3 of your greatest fears. Okay, hold them in your mind now. Now let's put those two things together. If your greatest fear got in your face and was happening, but you could run away, but if you ran away, that fear would turn on the one you love and attack the one you love instead. What would you do? Would you run away still, or would you face the fear and beat the living hell out of it to protect the one you love? Think about it. Let's say a home intruder. I'm just going to use the example. A home intruder, you're terrified of a home intruder. But let's say there's a home intruder that gets a hold of the person you love most in life. Are you going to turn around and run out the back door at that point if you get a chance to get away? Or are you going to throw yourself on top of that intruder, knowing that could be the end of you, but just throw yourself kicking and flailing on top of that intruder to try to help the one you love escape? And no matter how you have to think about it, combine the threat with the one you love like that. And for most of you, your answer would be absolutely. And you can even feel it. If you put yourself through this thought exercise, you can feel the emotion. You can feel the fear as you're describing it. But then when you see that fear going after the one you love, suddenly the fear goes down and it's replaced with something else. It's replaced with white hot determination to beat the living hell out of that fear. Suddenly it's not a fear anymore. Suddenly it's a threat to the one you love, and that is greater than your own personal fear. Suddenly your fear is gone. And that's what illustrates the verse. Perfect love casts out fear. It's a violence. Perfect love kicks fear the hell out. And it does, because in that moment you feel a burning passion to attack the fear rather than a horrific terror to get away from the fear. So it's empowering. If you think about it, your own love is stronger than your fear. And for a lot of people trapped in fear, that is an amazing anecdote. It is amazing. Anecdote isn't the word I want. Antidote. Because all you have to do is think about the one you love and think about how you would protect that one. And as you focus on that love, the fear goes down. Let's say someone's harassing you or bullying you online and you feel terrible about it and you don't know what to say back and blah, 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 and you're all caught up in the heat. Well, that's like a minor fear, but for some people it really bothers them. Stop focusing on that person. Start thinking about the one you love. Thinking about the one you love. Thinking about protecting them. Suddenly you could care less about that dispute. You can use, what I'm trying to say is you can use this in every area of your life. Let's say you have a medical condition and it's really hard to do a lot of things that other people take for granted. It's hard to get out of bed. It's hard to do certain things. Well, if you're focusing on your pain and you're focusing on the fear that it's going to get worse, then that fear and that pain consumes you. But if you stop and you say, I'm going to get out of bed for the one I love. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make breakfast to inspire the one I love, to show them that if I can overcome my fear, they can overcome their fear. Like, think about the object of your love as you face the fear, and you will find you have way more power than you ever thought you needed to face that fear. As you keep focusing, maybe it's your daughter. Just think about how much you would do for your daughter, how much you would sacrifice for your daughter as you start to do the things that you're scared to do. As you start to do the things you want to do, but you're afraid. Say, I'm gonna face this fear for my daughter. And as you do that, the amount of strength that will well up in you will shock you. You will find it is way more powerful than your fear. And that should give you a tremendous amount of hope, because it means you are a being that was made to love more than anything else. And your capacity for love is so strong that it squashes all the things that would harm you. And they say, great men go into battle and face insurmountable fears. But if you talk to the bravest soldiers who did the bravest things and won all the awards for everything, they will always say something like, I wasn't doing it to be a hero. I wasn't doing it out of a sense of duty. I was doing it because I couldn't let my buddy next to me get killed. I was protecting my other fellow soldiers. I couldn't let the enemy win and let my country, face this horrible enemy and my wife and kids back home. Like, they'll often talk about their wife and kids, they're doing it for them, but very often it's the immediate right in front of them. Their buddy right next to them is about to die and they have no other choice. They have to jump in front of danger because their love is greater than their fear. And it sounds great when you hear stories about soldiers and they get awards and all that stuff. It's the stuff of movies, but you are that same hero. You don't have to be in a war. You don't have to be in some epic movie story. Your story of you getting out of bed and making breakfast when you don't feel like it can be just as heroic because you're doing it for the one that you love. So practice that. And as you go through life, it doesn't always have to be the same person. You might have more than one person in your life that you would lay your life down for. So you can switch it up. Like, you can focus on a particular, my daughter is going through a hard time. I'm going to do this to be strong for her. I'm going to do this to be strong for her. And then maybe a few years later, she's doing fine, and your nephew is going through a hard time. And you say, well, I'm really feeling compassionate for my nephew. I'm going to do this for him. I'm going to do this for him. Or maybe one of your parents is going through a really rough time. You say, I'm going to do this for him or her. It doesn't always have to be the exact same object of your affection. But whatever it is, focus on what you have perfect love for. Perfect meaning down to the depths of your soul. You would throw your life in front of a threat to save that person. And it will shock you the amount of strength that wells up inside of you when you thought you were weak and you thought you were pathetic and you thought you were, just some average nobody. You have an amazing capacity to love. You were made to love. Your strength is in love. And with love, no enemy can touch you. No threat can scare you. Nothing can stop you because you are radiating through yourself the most unstoppable force in the universe. And that's not a Hallmark sentiment. That is scientifically, mathematically, 100% the reality. You might find it hard to believe, but try it and watch what happens.